Hey, y'all, how's it going? I think we're all set up and live finally. Yeah, great to, glad that I think the video today's probably been the biggest response I've gotten in quite a bit. So thanks to anyone that's new and joining the stream and kind of came in through that video. The algorithm is a funny thing that how that brings people in. But yeah, we'll let the room ring in for a bit. Definitely let me know if you're here in the chat. If you could, it would really be helpful to know, kind of where you're at with Unreal, and then I can kind of go in any direction. Because we're here live, I'd rather try to give you as much advice and as many lessons as I can, depending on where you're at in your journey so far. I did send out an invite to all the people that are in Unreal Fundamentals, so we'll see who gets in from there, and definitely happy to go in depth and almost, we should basically the lesson plan, if you want to call it that, for today. I kind of have a little pitch deck I put together that just kind of walks through all of the big revelations and lessons that I came to as to the exact reason why I'm only using Unreal, and I'm kind of pretty much ditching any other software out there as far as Maya goes. I use Blender as kind of the thing to build assets. Like, you still have to build assets outside of Unreal. But beyond that, honestly, I've dropped everything else and just have tried to go all in, and I'm going to get into exactly why, because it does take a little while to really get that epiphany. It took me a while to actually understand why. What's up, Metatrox? Welcome aboard. But yeah, we'll get into all the nitty gritty, kind of go into what is fun and like what is also super promising about Unreal. I feel like, there's been a lot of press. A lot of it's been from Epic Games themselves to kind of push it out and make Unreal the cool, fun engine. But also, there's not been so many films that have come out. There are a couple here and there, and I want to spotlight those and kind of show what the coolest looking projects are that are coming out of Unreal, and kind of use that as a guideline to kind of see where we should be going. But funny enough, we've also been sharing some stuff in the Unreal Fundamentals Discord for some of the old Blur Studios work. Maybe we'll even get into that and just like watch a clip together, like movie theater style. That's kind of the most fun it can be. But honestly, looking back at some of those, if you're not familiar, Blur is just a commercial studio out of LA. They do a lot of the video game cinematics that you've probably seen. I'm sure you've seen their work if you're here. You just might not know it's them, but I'm sure you've seen their work. They did a lot of the Batman Arkham, a lot of the Halo anniversary cutscenes. They did a lot of like major stuff, and Elder Scrolls, they did a bunch of really good like 8 to 10 minute short films there. And I think all of them do a lot of things that might be beyond tonight, but we'll get into at least one and see what's up. What's up from Chicago? That's awesome. I'm from Wisconsin, right above you. Not there anymore, but yo, Midwest. But yeah, we'll get into it. Yeah, I think from here, let me know kind of where you're at. If you could let me know how many projects you've done in Unreal so far. So just leave a number. If you've done like 0, it's 0. If you've done 10, it's 10. I don't even know. Mine's probably about 10, I would say. Maybe a little bit more if you count the really small projects. But just to get an idea of where you guys are at, where you're coming from. Because some people are going to be brand new to Unreal, and some people are going to be like me and have been nerding out and kind of obsessing over all the in-depth YouTube tutorials and trying to like figure out how the whole workflow comes together in the end. But yo, that's awesome, Moose 4D. Okay, so yeah, well, we got some beginners here in the stream, so that's cool. 3 mini projects, Brandon, that's cool. And honestly, that's one thing we'll get into, because I think today is going to be a lot more about mentality. This is my first live stream on the channel, so I'm not gonna push my luck and try to run Unreal at the same time while live streaming first, because I'm sure it will crash at some point. But we're going to get into the why, and that's really what's most important, because we'll get into it. It's why we're making movies in the first place. Like, why are we even here? It's to actually be creative and ideally kind of look back at those couple, whether it's a TV show or a movie or whatever it is for you, kind of looking back and be like, wow, that's what I want to make this whole time. And Unreal kind of gives you that opportunity to do that without having to model, without having to know how to animate yourself, all these things, if it's in the bounds. So yeah, Moose 40 from Detroit. That's cool. Yo, so many Midwest people in here. That's really cool. Yeah, automotive is awesome. Yeah, we don't there is some cars in the projects that we get into, and the first or second lesson We at least are starting to add cars in. But that would be a really cool thing to dive in deep. So yeah, Jack, you're more familiar with Blender filmmaking. And that's cool too. We'll touch a little bit on Blender and how that kind of compares later on, because I think it's important. And Blender is, I think, a part of everyone's tool set now. I mean, you don't have to use Blender, but I think a lot of people see, hey, I don't need to pay a monthly subscription. And in my opinion, I think a lot of the new features since Blender 3 have like skyrocketed above Maya's potential. Maya has really just been so static in the last few years in terms of like previewing your work like an artist and not being, that's really the talk for today, is kind of looking through the old school way of visual effects, why it has kind of been failing independent. Maybe if you're a freelancer, you have tried to make CG films in the past. I'm sure you've gone through the difficulties of waiting around days and sometimes even weeks for renders, and it kind of destroys the creative process when you spend all this time on something, and then when you go to press render, it can end up taking, several minutes for a single frame. When we get into sequences and movies and animations, it gets absurd, and we'll get into all that. So yeah, honestly, I think we'll just hit the ground running. I'll just jump into the slide deck, and yeah, definitely throw any questions as I'm going through. This is definitely going to be, more of a conversation and getting into why are we even learning Unreal? Because there's so many options out there, but there is a very specific reason why I'm dropping everything else and not paying attention to, Houdini or, all the AI crap that comes out. There's something new every day. It's cool, but it's too much to keep up with. And I just want to look at what's the foundations. Why is Unreal the right choice and something that we should take the time to learn today, because it is going to still be valuable and used in the industry 5, 10, no one knows beyond 10 years. But there's so many cool things, especially with filmmaking, and especially that tie between game dev and visual effects. Let's just read through the chat, and then we'll jump right into the course. But thanks for spending your night. If you know anyone, throw out the invite link, and we'll get into it. It should be cool. We're getting into like what I love to talk about most, which is movies and visual effects and the fun stuff. Not getting bogged down by tactics and all that stuff. I will, yes. So yeah, we'll get into kind of my story on how I kind of got into virtual production as well. So I will kind of walk through that. I think that it's important. I'm basically going to kind of go through a little bit of my story, how I went from someone who was completely self-taught through YouTube tutorials back in the day, back in 2014, when I kind of was first getting my first freelance gigs and things like that. It was all through being self-taught on YouTube and FX PhD, but it was literally those two resources, and just doing a ton of projects myself in my dorm room, in my room at home, and all that. So, Jock Major, you're an intermediate user after the course. That's awesome. But yeah, 0 and 20 unfinished projects, that hits home. I have so many that are just like spent 3 hours and it's just totally unfinished. And a lot of stuff, you just hit that wall with the graphics card and then like, oh, I kind of have to rebuild this anyway. I'll just answer some questions really quick, and then we'll jump into kind of the lesson plan. It's nothing too official, but I want to definitely hit home, give you guys a reason to stay through. We're gonna hit this. It should be 30 minutes, 45 minutes, something like that, to kind of walk through the whole story, and I think you'll get something out of it. You'll see why we're learning Unreal in the first place. How would you resolve issues with textures looking ugly once you place it in the map? I know lighting is important, but even good lighting won't fix crappy textures. That I actually would disagree with. Good lighting will fix crappy textures within reason. I mean, if they're complete crap, that's its own thing. But the big thing, if you're not really happy with the base textures, you want to get something that you're happy with as a base. Like the ground, you want grass or dirt or sand or whatever the ground is going to be. But then you can really go to town with decals. That's where decals are super, it's my favorite feature in Unreal because it works in the deferred render, the regular game engine render, and it works in path tracing. And that's not even a thing that you have in Blender or Maya in the way that it works in Unreal. I think that's a super underrated thing. That might be a future video, I guess. But yeah, that would be the biggest thing, is if you're really not happy with the textures, get something that you're more happy with and then just start layering on decals. You can layer decals on top of decals and you can get pretty you're pretty complex with it, especially when you're using the normal intensity and you're kind of getting a bit more of like rough, like, you know, the surface of that image. That's when it's kind of cool. But yeah, so all right, let's jump into it. I'm gonna load this up on the screen. We'll, yeah, hopefully nothing crashes, or we'll see. But again, this is my first live stream, so we'll go through this. I think will be, you know, we'll get through it. That's for sure. All right, so here we go. So yeah, so I wanted to start with like I want you guys just to kind of go back and actually think about what is your favorite movie, and the real reason is like why are you even here today in this live stream? If you really get down to it, like what is the reason you're trying to, like what interests you about learning Unreal? And to me, I know it's that promise of like I can make films and I can make any idea as big as I have in my head, and I can make it inside of this free software. And that to me is enough. Like that is like I'm sold. And the real-time aspect, we'll get into why that's so cool. The video game aspect, specifically with Unreal, there's some really cool things once you really dive into the weeds. But ultimately, that's the technology. But I want to step back from all of that because Unreal is just a tool. If there's a better tool tomorrow, I'll change the domain name from Unreal for VFX to whatever it ends up being, because it's really just trying to find what is the thing that's going to let us be creative. And for me, it's creative in making movies and animated sequences with characters and action scenes, whether that's cars driving around, whatever it is. And when I think back to like what's my favorite movie, if you could just leave it in the chat, I'll pull it up. Actually, I'm going to move my screen around here to make sure I can see the chat still. Just give me one sec. Avengers Endgame. Dude, that when, yeah, I was, Infinity War got me. That was the one out of the two that just like struck me right in the heart. The ending totally got me. But yeah, okay, so there we go. Boop, 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 and we'll go back to it. All right. But yeah, so when I think back, like for sure, my first like being like sitting in the cinema, unsure of like what I'm even gonna watch next, and I remember being a kid, it was literally 1999, going to see Star Wars and sitting through that pod race for the first time as like a little kid who had never really been like blown away by a movie. I hadn't been in theaters that much. That was like the seat was literally shaking and feeling I can still hear the sound design of that scene when I just see the pictures. It's just like that vivid in my head, and I was like, that is the movie that made me say, I have to figure out what the hell that is and how people do that, and I've got to figure out how to do that, because it's just like magic when it all comes together in a single sequence. It's the best. So yeah, I just want to bring back to like why are we even doing this? Because like for me, a lot of the inspiration of why I'm trying to learn Unreal is to make films. For some people, it's going to be to work. Like, what movie do you want to work on? That was a big draw to me in the visual effects industry at first. Is like, man, if you can really start working on feature films and kind of climbing up and getting your name known at some of the bigger studios, like maybe you could really just, you know, get to work on some of these big projects. And that was definitely the appeal to me early on, and try to figure out how to navigate that maze. And we'll get into that story in just a little bit. But yeah, like what is that movie that you really want to work on? District 9, that's a great one, especially one with characters. Interstellar, Star Wars, Ready Player One. Brandon, Ready Player One is the driving scene in Ready Player One. I don't want to just do reaction videos on YouTube, but my goodness, the driving sequence. If you have anything to like write down, if you have notes or anything, write down Ready Player One driving scene. It's like it's the first 5-minute driving sequence in that movie, and that is like Steven Spielberg and ILM teaming up to just make the most incredible chase sequence I've ever seen, literally. So anyway, that's for another day. You know, and then the question is like, how can you do this by yourself? And not meaning like you don't have to work with other people, but how can you do it on your own terms? Like, how can you do it without taking out a loan to hire other people, or, you know, doing these crazy things? Movies become so expensive so quickly when you're working with day rates and locations and like equipment and gear and all these things. So how can we do this like when we want to make our own films at any time of the day at home, if that's possible? That to me is really what we're trying to do here. Is like, what are we, you know, I have the gear that I need, I think, at this point. I don't want to keep spending money on gear indefinitely. And I definitely, there's so many things with trying to be your own producer and creating your own short film. I'm sure someone in this live stream has done that and gone through the process of being the producer and director of your own film. I did that for my short film Stay, which is the Last of Us inspired short. And when you're taking on both hats and embracing it and doing all of the liabilities and orchestration and the people management of being a producer, while also trying to do the creative side of like, okay, I need to make a movie still, it's very easy to become overwhelmed. It's also very expensive if you're doing it all out of pocket. So all those things, there's lots of roadblocks if you want to be a filmmaker, and it's easy to let that get in the way. And if you're here right now, it's probably because you're trying to find a way around that, or you've been finding ways to just make your art without limitations. And that's really what we're trying to do with learning Unreal, is like get us closer to just the creation process. And you have an idea in your head, you just want to go and make it. And that's really the tool that Unreal is, that tool for me. And that's kind of the idea behind the training and the YouTube channel and everything like that. So we're, by being here, you really are that close. But I think most people do have it backwards for sure, especially when going into the film industry. I definitely thought this early on. When I was very young, I started to not believe this as much by high school. But a lot of people think you need to live in New York or LA. And for visual effects, it's definitely not true. Like it's probably harder to get work in LA or New York, to be honest, at this current moment. And that you have to come in with industry connections already, and that you need to have a college degree. I think these are the three biggest misconceptions out there. These were the thoughts spiraling around my head as I was trying to figure out how to kind of make that jump into the industry. So, but every single one of those, I found out along the way that they're just not true. And I found that out because I started out literally, with a camera in my backyard, trying to make my favorite movies and trying to do Star Wars. That's me as Darth Vader, playing with Aaron there. And yeah, I grew up in a small town. I had zero industry connections. I was in a town of like 8,000 people in the middle of Wisconsin, surrounded by cornfields and cows and nothing else. And yet, we all have internet, we all have computers, and we'll kind of get into how and why your location is not a limitation whatsoever. And I dropped out of college my freshman year as well. Like I don't publicly go out and say that, but don't go out and share it, I guess. But it's true. I dropped out my freshman year within the first semester because I was so laser focused on how can I just get a job in the industry and ignore these weird hierarchies of college, and I need this because my employer wants that, and like you're trying to like think of what the gatekeepers are going to stop you from doing, as opposed to just making your art in the first place. So that's kind of where it started. And by the end, I've now been fortunate enough to work in the industry for the last 8 years, worked my way up as a compositor and then eventually a compositing supervisor on Dungeons and Dragons. And yeah, pretty cool to super pumped that I got to work on some of the things I always wanted to. Got to work on Star Wars 9 in 2019. Just snuck in the last movie. That was crazy. But yeah, that was kind of the journey of starting there and literally going from someone who knew no one and just, I didn't even talk to someone about visual effects until my first studio job. Like that's how isolated I was, but I knew that I had to just get in for the first time. And once I could get that first job and that first leg in the door for whatever that opportunity is for you, it might not be visual effects, it might be, architecture, visualization, or automotive, or any of these industries, and just getting, booking that first big client or whatever that is for you. That's what we're trying to find out here. It's like, how can you do the same thing and accomplish that? So for anyone out here, this is for the visual effects artists out there. This is for complete beginners. If you're brand new, a lot of you are brand new to Unreal. So we're going to get into why it's so important, why I use Unreal as such a powerful filmmaking tool. And it's also true for industry professionals. All the training I'm trying to make is designed for beginners and complete pros to both understand it equally. That's the goal, at least. Hopefully it's working in the course and in the YouTube videos. And it doesn't matter your age, your background, your location, all of that. You're not limited whether you're a college graduate or you're still deciding on what the next step is for you. If you're kind of in between that stage, and you're a little bit younger. But yes, together, like if it's not obvious already, my vibe, I literally just live, breathe, and think about filmmaking and movies all the time. It's literally, it's just a blast. It's the coolest stuff for me. So I hope if you're here, it's because you are a filmmaker at heart on some level, and you know, making films and watching those incredible sequences. Hopefully you have that sequence in your head that kind of made you think like, yo, I want to make that. I want to you know, figure out how to make my art like that. And those like really big muses that you have early on, I think it's important to acknowledge that and not shy away from trying to make those type of movies. If you like those type of movies or projects or TV shows or whatever it is, like, then let's make it. Like, make your own version. Especially when we're just trying to make these demo projects, like, make a stormtrooper fight scene, make a car chase in the Matrix City. Like, do the stuff that's there, like do the low-hanging fruit and the easier stuff, and get those repetitions in once you kind of understand how the whole systems work. So if you love cinema, that's really all that we need here. You don't even know how to program. I think that's all this stuff. We don't need the budgets. We don't need any of that. And hopefully by the end of this, you'll see that really we just need Unreal 5 to do all that. And this was the demo reel that kind of first inspired me. That was like, wait, holy crap. And this was the very first demo made that Epic released when Unreal Engine 5 was announced. And I still haven't quite seen like an incredible environment and a display quite like this, where it captures the energy and the movement. But yeah, ever since I saw that, I started to try to make my own films and, you know, try to figure out how to, you know, really perfect my lighting workflow, going into compositing. And then there's also been some really incredible directors and short films that have made their own projects. Miguel Ortega made this really cool short. We made this music video for Tesseract's. The song was War of Being on that album. We made that music video for them. And then Sava Zivkovic is obviously, watch your Radiation if you haven't. That's another one for your notes. Write it down. It's super good. And even on Love, Death, and Robots, there was, on the last season, there was an episode completely made inside of Unreal 4. And then obviously the next frontier is virtual production, working on set. And that's kind of what I've been doing professionally, like when I'm more working for studio jobs. That's kind of what I've been doing lately, and that's been a blast. And I will also share kind of how that journey came about and how you can hopefully kind of recreate that for yourself in the future. So I'm just checking in. Are we all good? Is like everyone's clued in? Are we like, are we all good and ready to kind of dive in and figure out like why we're learning Unreal? Because yeah, this is really what it's going to be about, is trying to dive in and find out how we ourselves, you know, the indie filmmakers, you know, I've worked on some big movies. I definitely consider myself an indie filmmaker at heart. I'm not waiting for Hollywood to come and save me and give me that $50 million budget movie, because it's just not going to happen. Like, it's not going to come out of the blue. It's going to come from making your own films and doing it yourself and making your own projects. And I think Unreal 5 unlocks a lot of doors for you as a freelancer, as a visual effects artist, if that's your background in particular. We want to use those strengths and the skills that you already have and some of that background to just make bigger and better films as fast as possible. And I think Unreal is that tool for a lot of people. So yeah, no prerequisites for real. Like, you don't need no programming. You just need to know logic. Like, that's it. That's the only thing. These tools are not that complex. You just need to kind of have them explained in a simpler way than they currently are. So let's do it. Let's jump in. So how to make films without Hollywood budgets. That's the real subject here. We'll walk through the infinite rendering problem and why traditional visual effects studios, everyone's trying to follow the path of traditional visual effects studios when they're making, you know, 5 to 10% margins at the end of the year. And they're spending a ton of money on things that us as individuals can never do. We'll get all the way into that. I don't mean to pop off quite yet. And then the exact reason I've really pinpointed exactly why Unreal is the right decision and the right, you know, software of choice, why it is the right, the right tool to learn for the next 5 to 10 years, why visual effects artists and filmmakers are kind of going over, and why most artists fail along the way. All right, so I kind of talked this about before, so I'm going to speed up. Kind of went through all this. But yeah, grew up as a gigantic Star Wars nerd. I literally learned After Effects for the first time because I wanted to figure out how to make a Star Wars, like a lightsaber. So I took this shot when I was 7 or 8 or whatever it was. I made this in Photoshop, and it was like, how do I make this into an After Effects lightsaber, and just found that, yeah, went through YouTube at like a super young age and just was like, oh, that's how you do it. So that's my entire background. It's not been more of a traditional path. It's been a little bit more self-taught and just kind of learning yourself and really finding those resources out there on the internet and kind of creating a curriculum for yourself. That was kind of, my approach early on. But yeah, I was really I knew I just always had that energy of like, yes, we need to make movies. That's always the end goal. Like that's never strayed for a single day. And I want to make them. I don't want to just watch them. I want to make them, and maybe one day make a movie for the big screen, see it in a theater with a whole bunch of people I've never met before, and be like, whoa, we're like, they want to see this movie. That will be pretty dang cool, I think. Yeah, maybe they'll like it. That'd be cool too. So yeah, just to walk through real quick, we'll blast through this, but. Yeah, in high school, I mean, it kind of went through grade school of like learning Photoshop and learning After Effects. And then eventually I was like, my stuff kind of looks bad. So I wanted to learn visual effects to improve it and kind of make my own work look like Hollywood films and following Hollywood visual effects tutorials. And then being like, okay, wow, I could really do this. I watched the crap out of the behind the scenes of Attack of the Clones, and just like over and over and over again, it was like, this is it. This is what I got to do. So that's when I just got bit by the VFX bug. And so just to kind of walk through exactly how I got that first job really quick. So that was, I was basically kind of networking with people online through Reddit and through LinkedIn. And I was probably like 15, 16 years old, just trying to get like rotoscoping jobs, like really simple base level jobs just to get experience. Cause I was working in like retail stores, like, Shopco. If someone from the Midwest, does anyone know Shopco? That would be insane. But you just might. Anyway, it's like a Walmart for 60-year-olds is probably the best way to put it. All right. So, I connected with people through there, and the question was constantly like, how can I get paid to do visual effects? Like I'm doing all these tutorials, I'm doing all these, at the time it was After Effects tutorials, but I was like, how can I actually turn this into a job and get paid? And that was like just a fascination for me, like at a very early age. I don't know why. My dad was an entrepreneur, so I think a lot of that was like, yeah, how do you turn this into a business or something like that? And every time I would kind of reach out to people and I'd see like, freelance visual effects supervisor or head of compositing at this studio, and just see these people on LinkedIn and all these places and just shoot them a message and say, hey, like how can I do roto for you? Just like kind of naive, not really knowing of, yeah, can I work for you? Can I be a PA? Can I grab coffees for your studio? At that point, I didn't really care. And I kept hearing the same thing from every single person. And that was that they needed to see my show reel, the demo of the work that you had. And at 15, that was kind of drilled into my head of like, people aren't asking me for my college degree. They're not even asking for references. They're just asking for a proof of work of the show reel. And I think that really simplifies this, like, how do I get a job? How do I get into the industry? What's the first step? The first step is make a show reel so good that you are like, no one can say no to you. Like that is the standard, is like, how can it be so good that anyone would look at it and say like, whoa, I need that guy or girl on my team. And I think that's really the standard to shoot for. When you're first starting out, there is such a big gap, and you will constantly be reminded of like, you think you're so close to getting a perfect shot, and then someone kind of critiques your work in a new way, and you're like, I didn't see that, I didn't see this, like, and then you almost like, oh my God, there's still so much to learn. And I think that's the cool part about art. So anyway, that was high school. That was kind of figuring out that big lesson of like, they're just asking me for a show reel. And then I got into quite a few arguments and fights. This was really the only thing I fought with my parents over, was going to college. They were adamant it was destiny that I must go to college. I found out later that my dad had told me, like, it was a pretty low moment, but he was like, Josh, my biggest regret is not going to college. And you're telling me that you don't want to go to college? Like, how can you're betraying yourself? You're almost betraying the family. And he didn't say that, but that was, that was the feeling of like, you have an opportunity to do this or whatever. And that was the feeling. And we kept going at odds because I had that opportunity. And in high school, I had gotten a couple of those jobs. So I'd gotten a couple I did some ads for the Super Bowl and a couple small things along the way, small commercials, but I was getting paid, and like every month there was kind of a new freelance project coming in, and to kind of stop that and just to go to school because you're supposed to go to school didn't make a lot of sense to me. But I did end up kind of, I did feel guilty, and I felt at the time like it was the right choice I'm going to go to film school. I'm going to try it out. I'm going to see what it's like. And, you have this idea of like, we're going to go and there's going to be like 50 people just like me, and we're all going to make films, and someone's going to have a script, and then, I can take turns holding the camera or whatever it is. And everyone's playing different roles. And then you get into school and you realize that it's just a giant classroom, and everyone seems to want to talk about movies, but no one actually wants to make them. That was my personal experience. It's obviously different for everybody. So what's up, Lazy Contradiction? +1 for Shopco. What's up, Alex? Another Wisconsin local. Check out Compositing Academy if you haven't. Subscribe to his channel. But yeah, so that was the idea. And the reality is, if you're in the United States, college is $15,000 a year at a minimum. And when it goes to the maximum, it can easily be over $25,000 a year, which is $100,000 by the time you're graduating. And to me, that blew my mind. Like, there was no possible way that was going to happen. So as soon as I kind of got in, my biggest thing was like, I just knew in my heart, because of that earlier experience, that I did not need a degree. I just need a portfolio of work. So honestly, I just stopped going to class. I was kamikazeing that college experience of like, this is the way, is just making the reel and sending it out and getting it into the hands of supervisors and people on LinkedIn and all that stuff. So I needed to build a show reel, and that was the focus. And by doing that process, it took me 3 months of literally dropping everything else, and I was super obsessed at this point. I guess I still am. But at that point, it was like, this was the only mission, and it was like 12 to as many hours as I could possibly focus. I was just working on my reel. And so that's why I was able to do it in a short amount of time. But that was 3 months of concentration and, years prior of like slowly building up all these skills, so that all at once I could end up building a reel. I got to send it in at MPC, and I kind of got my first compositing job out of MPC Montreal. And that was the way. That was the job offer. I got an email, and they were like, "Oh, can you jump on a call on Thursday?" I was living in the United States at the time, and it was Thanksgiving Day, just like it just was. This last week. I'm in Canada at the moment, and Montreal is in Canada, where the job offer was. And they're like, "Oh, can you call us on Thursday?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, like let's do it at this time." It's like, "Cool, let's do it." And then it turned out I was literally scheduling it at the time where we were having like Thanksgiving dinner, because I was in the States, and Canada did not have, like, they weren't considering like, "Oh, you have a family thing." But I was like, I don't care, I just have to do it. So anyway, that worked out. If you look here in the back, it was funny, I was just pulling up a picture, but it's a Corridor digital hat from way back in the day. I've honestly been following their stuff since like 2008, and depending on how, some of the older folks probably have been familiar with their stuff for a while. Yo, what's up, Borislav? What's up, man? And yeah, so that was the first project. That was the first big show, and that was kind of the first leap into Alien Covenant. Funny enough, this was the first show. This is the show where I met Compositing Academy, Alex Hanneman. We've been really good buds since this. I think I actually I thought I put a picture in there of back in the day. But yeah, so that was the first big project, and that was by just building a reel, getting it in front of the right people, and just focusing on, if I can make my art good enough, if I can make it, if I can hit a prompt and make something believable and realistic, which is kind of the goal with a lot of traditional VFX, like how can I make this look completely photoreal? That was really the only obsession, and it allowed me to kind of get that first opportunity on that big movie. And since then, obviously, it really is about getting that first foot in the door. And then ever since, I've been obviously thankful to work on a couple of little projects. So you don't need to take the traditional route. That's just why I wanted to walk through that, is there are multiple options. There's not this one rigid path, especially today. I would say probably about more than half of VFX artists in the industry, they probably have gone to college, but it's just not a requirement. I wanted to go through that because a lot of people think so. And quite frankly, when you're learning something like Unreal Engine, where it gets updated every month, every 2 weeks, basically, if you're updating the engine as they're kind of publishing it, then there's no, like, colleges are honestly most of them are not going to be keeping up to that level. So at that point, I went through, got to work on some cool movies. Eventually, literally got to work on my dream movie, which was Star Wars, and I kind of got to a what now moment of like, oh my God, this is so cool. But then, like, what I kind of realized, you know, I'm kind of fast forwarding here, but 6 years into kind of working on movies, it was kind of, it was like, wait, why did I even start down this path? And the reason was because I wanted to make my movies look like Hollywood films. It wasn't to make films for other people and like be a contractor to make someone else's art. The original idea was to make my own films. So that was like the through line, and that kind of just hit me like a brick. And especially after kind of going through and working on that dream project, it kind of just brought that to the forefront. And eventually, that's the thing. If you go down this path and you end up kind of working on those movies or shows or productions that you want, eventually you're going to hit that point of like, why did you start? What are we going back to? What are the movies that we wanted to make in the first place? Like that's the ultimate question. And I constantly remind myself with Post-it notes, all those things, because that's what it is. Like that's where the energy, that's where the creativity comes from, is those like moments and movies that excite you. So, you know, still holding on to that dream of maybe one day we'll make it onto the big screen. Yeah, just checking the chat. But yeah, okay, so that's the setup. But honestly, at that point, I was trying to look at what is the feasibility of making your own films as an indie filmmaker. So I'm guessing that someone kind of like you've at least thought, how do I make my own projects? It might not be a movie, it might be a game, Borislav, or it might be any sort of just personal creative project. Everyone's got that thing that is in the back of their mind that they want to keep making. And to make something great, to make something like excellent, like to make something like The Matrix or Star Wars or Die Hard or any of these like crazy all-time great movies and pieces of art, you don't start there. You start by putting in the work and by putting in the practice when no one's looking, when no one's appreciating it. You have to kind of put in those reps and those 10,000 hours. It is a requirement. You don't need to do that to achieve your goals. You don't have to hit 10,000 hours in order to achieve whatever it is. But I think to really have a, you know, where you kind of live and breathe and you think in the art form, if that makes sense, you kind of like can see the images as you're thinking. If it's more of a visual medium, or with music, you can hear the music as you're writing it. It's just in your body, it's part of you. So you have to practice to get that point. And with filmmaking, I got up against this wall of it's either slow when it's with visual effects, or it becomes incredibly expensive. So this I refer to as the infinite render problem. So if we look at a movie here, so Avatar 2, right? How long do you think it took them to render a single frame? And if you have a guess, like throw it in the chat, because it's a little ambiguous. So I'm gonna give you my best guess, but I'd love to just hear what you think. Like, what's the first thing that comes to mind for just a single frame like this of what you think Avatar, which is in 4K, it's a 3D movie, and so to render this like a big visual effects studio would, it's going to take you like at least 24 hours. And honestly, they're usually, 26 hours is a very good guess. And every shot's gonna be a little different, but by the time you're rendering out the different passes, the trees, the background, and then you're doing simulations and all these different things, it's easily, just the rendering of the lighting itself and no simulations, that alone takes about I would say 24 hours a frame. So then the question is, if you were gonna take that movie and to render Avatar 2 on your home machine on one computer and just let it run, because I'm just trying to play out the simulation of how would you do this and make a project like this, how long would that take to run on your computer to render out a 2.5-hour movie? And just one time, because they're re-rendering shots over and over again. They're not rendering a shot one time and it's done. They're rendering it like 50, maybe not 50, but up to 10 times or something like that, is definitely safe to say. So if you're gonna render this on one computer, it would take you 2.8 million hours or 328 years to render it on your home machine. So the question kind of from there is like, well, then how are they doing it at Weta? At big VFX studios, they have render farms. They have machines and like warehouses essentially, or like ice boxes filled with servers and with computers that are just running and crunching numbers. A lot of it is done with AWS now as well, but that is how it's done, and that's very, very expensive. You have to buy all these computers. I mean, you can just imagine. You have to pay to set it up and the infrastructure and then the rent for the building and all these things. And I think it's worth focusing in and pinpointing of like, is that realistic for you to have access or be constantly paying for a render farm every day just to like come up with your idea? It's kind of going into the expensive bucket or the expensive problem of if you're paying for a render farm as just an individual. So it bears focus, like it's worth looking at for an individual, for an indie filmmaker, for someone who's making their own films, their own art, or their own freelance projects, and they're working as a small team. I think truly for most people, traditional VFX is slow and arguably too slow if you want to make animated sequences. If you're making something that's 30 seconds long, okay, you can definitely make that work. But if you're making a 5-minute or a 10-minute or a 20-minute film, it's just not done that way because there is this barrier of like literally, unless you have a ton of money or a ton of resources, you can't do it. And it's just worth focusing on. And the other side of that coin is the creativity. So when you're going to render and you're rendering it, like it takes 24 hours to render. I think a lot of people might not realize from the outside that a lighting artist, a lighter at a visual effects studio, most of their job is wrangling renders. It's very technical and like, oh, I'm checking that this got off the farm. It's checking things in. And there's very little time for the actual creation and that creativity. And that's the fun part. That's the part I get super excited about. And to me, I think I came about this recently is when you're having a flow state, you're kind of just like, you work and it feels like hours goes by or hours do go by and it feels like, oh my God, it just feels like a couple minutes, right? And ultimately, it's very hard to get into a flow state when you're stopping in the middle of your work, when you're stopping halfway through and like, okay, cool, I think it's kind of good. Let me wait 5 minutes to see the result of my work. And especially with sequences, with still images, it's definitely, it's usable to denoise and things like that, but for single images, because when we get into Blender and Maya, that's kind of the next level, right? I think that was probably where everyone's mind would go is like, okay, well, the VFX studios are, they're doing that. Is there a version of this where you could use Blender or Maya at home? Avatar was on their own custom render engine, but most visual effects studios use Maya and Arnold. If I'm going to make a really broad generalization, that is generally what traditional VFX studios are going to be using. I think a lot of people at home starting out, they're going to use Blender. Mac Draws saying, even an indie creator would use a render farm. And I think it's definitely possible, but again, you come into an expense problem very quickly. So it's definitely, all these things are possible. If you have a huge freelance client that, you need a fast turnaround and you can afford to pay for a render farm, that's cool too. But I think ultimately, like if you're trying to make long form films, and I think that's really what I'm personally trying to look at is not how do I make a 1-minute short? It's like, how do I make a 20-minute TV show? How do I make a 90-minute film? How do we make movies? Like, how do I, like literally, like how can we do this? And I think we can when we're using Unreal and not using these traditional tools. So that's kind of where it's at with Maya. And this is kind of the example, excuse me there. So if we're going to say that it takes about 1 hour to render a frame, and some of you might think that that is an over exaggeration, like that's too long. I'm saying, oh no, you can render, or you could denoise a render in Blender and it's less than an hour a frame. But if you actually go through that process and you denoise renders in a sequence, you'll really quickly, you'll figure out that it doesn't, like the denoising flickers between all the different frames if you don't let your shot render. It does save some render time, but with a sequence, it doesn't save nearly as much time as you might think. And when it might take up to 1 hour a frame, let's say it took you 30 minutes to render a frame, or 20 minutes, let's say it's like 20 minutes to render a frame, you get the results back, and now it's flickering. It's like, okay, well now I have to re-render it and increase the settings and make a longer render. And now I wasted all the time for the first render that failed. And now I got to run the, I'm running a longer render. And hopefully that goes through. Hopefully it doesn't crash partway through. So that's why I'm budgeting an hour here. But if you're going to put 1 hour per frame and you want to make a 10-minute movie, it would take your machine 600 days to render it. And like, again, that seems like an exaggeration, but if you just do the math, literally it would take 600 days to render one version of your 10-minute film. So when we get into doing long form movies, that's really where the problem is like any of these things work for a 10-second clip, or a 10-second clip would be fine. But when you're getting into multiple minutes and you want to iterate on that and you want to make versions and you don't want to go with your first result that you just spat out, you want to actually like work through the challenge of lighting and making a creatively interesting movie. That's kind of how it goes. So that's the visual effects side. The filmmaking side is the opposite path. So I brought down these two branches because these are literally the paths that I walked down as I was trying to figure out how to make my own films, like on a budget, without spending a ton of money for every single idea, like without spending $5,000 for every idea. How could I spend as close to zero as possible, or buy like a couple pieces of equipment and make, you know, as many as possible? So the other route obviously is traditional filmmaking, buying cameras, buying lenses, renting them, and getting a crew. So just to kind of walk through briefly, I'm just going to kind of go through the story of at least how, you know, I ended up in the virtual production path. I was at MPC. I was a compositing supervisor on Dungeons and Dragons, and during that time, I was feeling kind of burnt out, to be perfectly honest. And I was looking at Unreal Engine of like, whoa, I think this could really be a route for filmmaking. And that was the early inception. I think it was 2020 was when I first started exploring Unreal and like downloading and trying out stuff for the first time and making projects. And yeah, from there it was a right time, right place, right time situation. But I did get a call from someone that needed an on-set operator, and a lot of times, like, that's the luck equation. Luck is when preparation meets timing, essentially. I mean, there's like 50 versions of that, but I think that's useful. It is like timing meets preparation from yourself. I was prepared by happenstance of following my own interests, and then kind of had that opportunity fall in front of me, and was like, okay, cool. I mean, it was right place, right time, and kind of got to go on set and see. You know, I've been on smaller sets before, especially indie level stuff, like definitely. But being on a show, it's been reported publicly that, you know, it's about 18 to 20 million an episode or something like that for a show like this. It was a very big production and beyond anything I had personally seen, and that always was sort of the goal in the back of my head. Was like, yeah, maybe one day I'll make that film, I'll make that movie or TV show or whatever it is. And this was I mean, truly is kind of the scale that when you're dreaming of what you could possibly do by the end of your life, it's like, yeah, like that would be awesome. Like, yeah, why can't you do that? Why can't you, like, you could be the one to get that job ultimately. But that was sort of the drive into it. But being there on set and seeing how many people it took and how many people are on a $600 day rate and how expensive that immediately becomes, it is literally just, it's astronomically expensive. I did that thing on the website. If you go through and actually tally it up, it can easily be anywhere from $50,000 to over $150,000 for a single shoot day. And if, again, for people like you and me, how practical is it? Like, it's just not. It's not how we're actually going to get our films made. We're going to have to be the ones producing our own stuff. Again, Hollywood is not going to save us. They're not going to scoop in and like be the money fairy and sprinkle money on you because you have a creative idea. You're going to have to be the risk taker, and you're going to have to be the one that believes in an idea strong enough to kind of live behind it, be the producer, be the director, be that creative, and push it into real life. And when you have $50,000 to, you know, $50,000 plus for a single shoot day, it immediately becomes like it's just not possible. It literally is not possible, and we have to find another way. Because I'm not about to give up on my dreams just because one path is not possible. I want to find that next way. So that it truly is exactly why I stumbled onto Unreal Engine 5. And I think that's the same reason a lot of filmmakers in the last 2 to 3 years have jumped over. Again, we've talked about that earlier. Love, Death, Robots, they created, there's a great episode, The Vaults Untombed, something like that. It's in the last season of Love, Death, Robots. They made films entirely in Unreal. We're seeing a lot more indie productions coming about. And I think a lot of the barrier has been the difficulty in education. So obviously trying to help that. Absolutely. I mean, crazy memories of OT, but that's all the studios, to be honest, when it gets into crunch. But I mean, it was bad there. So here's the thing. So we spent all this time. And I spent all this time, like I'm fast forwarding through this, and hopefully this doesn't take too long. I'm not rambling too much, but this is fast forwarding through 6 years of constantly trying to think. Like this is all I'm thinking about. I'm trying to think like, is there a way to rent gear for really cheap? Can I do some work arrangement and get gear for free or something, some way to work around this system and find the loopholes, find the shortcuts throughout the system. And what I found ultimately was Unreal Engine 5 and real-time rendering. And real-time rendering is it's the unlock to everything. And I will get to why. And I called the infinite rendering problem earlier. We can go back and forth about how long something takes to render. If you want avatar quality renders, it's gonna take you 24 hours. So the real thing is why it's the infinite render problem is you can max it out as much as you want. Quality is infinite if you're gonna path trace something. So at a certain point, like we have to be practical about, okay, that's not a route to go. What are the routes we can go to make our own films? So that's where real-time rendering steps in. Yeah, just more stuff with Unreal here. But, and the big thing here is, I guess we'll let this play and talk about flow state and creativity a little bit. Let's play that. It's a good video. It kind of shows the power of Unreal. All these projects are completely made in Unreal. These renders are directly out of Unreal without any post-processing in this first half. So this is the real thing, is how do we have a system where we can throw anything into the computer, no limitations. Another part of Blender and Maya is the more geometry you add into your renders, the longer your render will take. But we need a system that will just chew through any amount of geometry, any amount of lighting, and give us real-time feedback so we never break that flow state. So we're always we're always creating. And I think that's the thing. If you can live in a world where you're always creating an 8-hour day, you're actually spending time creating and innovating and thinking and trying out ideas for 6 hours of that day, as opposed to 1 or 2 when you're going through the technical process of being a lighter at a visual effects studio. At least like the creating process behind it specifically, not shot count. That's really the question, is how, like, when we have real-time rendering, what are the avenues that open up? And that's exactly why virtual production is focused around real-time rendering, because it's the only way. Like, you can't spend 24 hours to render something. You can't pre-render it. You need to render 24 frames in a single second on a 24K screen. If we're talking about virtual production on an LED volume, it's just a massive render task. But a powerful engine like Unreal Engine and some clever engineering can make it possible. That's the power of running on a giant LED screen like you're seeing here. And then, yes, we will go over some Unreal live stream. So some Unreal renders. So that's the real reason why. It's going to give us more creativity. The time we spend working is time creating. I think that's really undervalued in visual effects. Even in compositing, even if you've used After Effects, I'm sure a lot of you out there have used After Effects. If you use Unreal and are zipping through a 3D scene and you're creating cameras and you're moving around and moving lights and all these things, you go from that in this like real-time interactive experience and you go to After Effects and it takes you like 3 minutes to just preview 2 seconds of footage because it takes so long to render these EXRs. There's like, you forget, it's very easy to forget. I didn't realize a Nuke was so slow until I started using Unreal, and I'm like, oh my God, like I didn't even know. I've been using it for 8 years and I thought it was kind of fast, and it's like, no, real-time rendering changes everything and you have to really use it. If some of you out there have not used Unreal, hopefully the people out there have at least started your first project on something, even if it's just downloading some of the free example projects, just to open it up and see what they can do. If you're looking for a first project to kind of jump into as well, a really good recommendation would be the Slay animation project. Another thing for your notes, if you're writing it down, the Slay animation project, it's characters, it's animations, it's a really great environment. It's literally a production case study created by Epic just to give you an animated film and see exactly how it's made. I also have the free one with our Unreal Crash Course, but Slay is going to be probably that next level up where you can see multiple characters coming together with some custom animation. And that's all the power of Unreal. It's literally, I have a thought, I'm gonna try it out, and oh, it doesn't work. Okay, let's try this. Oh, no, it's over here. And you can actually create accidents. That's another really cool thing about Unreal and real-time rendering, is looking through reflections, looking through, seeing these angles, looking around like a filmmaker, like a photographer, but you can float around, in infinite world. You're not actually bound by the constraints of real life. With lighting, you're not bound by the constraints of hauling up a giant light into the sky or finding out where you're gonna plug in that light. You just have so much more flexibility. And when you really embrace this as a filmmaking tool and you're really trying to think of how can I just create films at the speed of thought, for me, the entire experience with Unreal started to change, and it was just so much more fun to start creating. And it was creativity and creation was top of mind the entire time. So I hope that at least, that was a really big epiphany for me early on. When using Unreal, was dropping this preconceived notion of maybe I'll mix and match, maybe I'll try Unreal, maybe I'll migrate, I'll see. It's you have to go all in and try Unreal, try real-time rendering specifically, and the growth curve of that. Real-time rendering, it's not like it's twice as fast. It's not like it's 3 times as fast. It's exponentially faster. It is so much faster that you are removing all of the roadblocks that were in front of you, and suddenly weeks of work can get done in just a couple days. And it might seem like an exaggeration, but maybe Borislav can attest to it. Sometimes when you're using Unreal and you've embraced these real-time workflows, you can create these incredible projects in just a couple days, sometimes even in a single day if you're really consistent with the tools and everything. But all that to say, that's the fun side. The one problem with Unreal is the bottleneck is learning. We're learning a game development tool, and that does trip a lot of people up. It has had a lot of updates. It's hard to know exactly what the right workflows are inside of Unreal, especially for filmmaking in particular. You're always naturally trying to piece together all these tutorials. That's exactly what I did. But the real thing in the light at the end of the tunnel about this is that you really only have to learn it once, and then you never have to learn it ever again. So if you go through this process of learning how to use Unreal Engine as a real-time filmmaking tool, you're gonna get stuck along the way. You're gonna face roadblocks, but if you push through it and know why you're choosing to do this and why it is the right choice to enable you to make the films that you want to make, then it becomes obvious that okay, we'll go through this first bottleneck, the learning process early on, and then you get the ability to make real-time films for the rest of your life. That might seem dramatic or whatever, but that's really how I saw it, and that's why I spent a long time to learn Unreal in the first place and try out all these workflows. It's been several years in the making of trying to figure out what is the best workflow for doing this. It's not all rainbows and gumdrops, but it is, I've learned so much along the way, and it's made me a more efficient, that producer brain, that producer hat you put on. It's made me a lot more conscious of how can you make a film as a group, as a small team, and actually get something done effectively. And that's kind of what we put together when we made the samurai sword fight for War of Being. But that is ultimately the biggest roadblock, is the game dev and visual effects side. So yeah, I think that's the big lessons that I took away, and why I'm so excited about real-time rendering in particular. The one thing and the one lesson that, again, it might be weird. I really don't know. I don't talk about it publicly to a lot of people, but I keep a lot of post-it notes of the things that are really important to me, like the constant reminders that in my life have made a really big difference and kind of changed my behavior for the better. And sometimes a small phrase, putting it next to a mirror or next to the kitchen when you're washing dishes. Like, it just keeps it top of mind. It refreshes that. One of those things is you use it or you lose it. And a lot of people think, I had this, and you might have had something similar to this, right? Like my parents had me learning piano when I was a kid. It might be cello or clarinet for some other people or whatever it is. Or even a second language. When I was in second grade, we started taking Spanish class in, Hortonville, Wisconsin, in the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin. Where there was just like, there's no one to speak Spanish to except in Spanish class, I guess. So we all spent like 8 years learning Spanish. And then the next year came when they were like, okay, it's not required anymore, so we don't need to know it. And everybody lost it. Like, they lost any part that because no one was using it. No one was practicing, no one was using it or thinking about it in their time off. And I can't blame anyone. I was the same way. A lot of people think this can happen with skills. They think it can happen with like an instrument. I learned how to play the piano and then I stopped and now I can no longer read music. But I think a lot of people don't realize that this happens to your ideas and this happens to your ambitions. You either use it or you lose it. Like, if you have that idea in your head that you've always wanted to make, if you don't use it, if you don't make it and turn it into reality, it doesn't get better over time, it gets worse. You lose that energy and that spark and that muse that you got when you first thought of it. And every day and every week and every year, for some, I have ideas that are multiple years old, and I'm like, damn, I wanna make this stuff. And it's by not using it, it really might never get made. And that idea that maybe got you up in the morning was like, man, I want to write this today, or I want to make a concept image for this, this new IP that I'm just coming up with in my head. If you don't use it and actually create something with it, it will go away and it will just never exist. And like, that's not what we want as artists, right? As a visual effects artist, like, sometimes it's just about putting in that day's work to turn it into, make a project, turn it into reality. And even if you don't love that artwork at the end of the day, okay, we got that version 1. Like, we're using it. We're now, what's version 2? Like, we went through that. This didn't work. You can come up with ideas and problems to solve. But if you don't use it, and if you don't actually go through and use those ideas that you've always wanted to make, those movies and those ideas that you've had in your head, they will go away. So that's why that's why it's felt like such a thing that I need to focus on every single day, is figure out how to make this workflow as fast as possible and create an efficient machine for making movies, and also keeping it fun. Like, not making it a machine that's evil and boring like the grind of the Hollywood machine, but truly a system for making movies repeatedly over and over again. And that's kind of what's brought me to making that samurai sword fight with War of Being. That was the real big thing. The final epiphany, the final lesson that we learned was even on War of Being, though, is that, we were doing all of the animation and everything inside of Unreal. And the whole inception of that project was, how do we make a film without leaving Unreal? And that's not entirely possible. If you want to make custom assets, you got to go into ZBrush and Substance or whatever you want to use to create your own assets. So that's a side of it. But beyond that, the actual layout and the cameras and the lighting and all of that we wanted to make sure, and even the physics on the character, we didn't want to simulate something and import it. We wanted it all to be in real time inside of Unreal. And then we got finished with our renders, and then we went to go composite them, whether that's in Nuke or it's After Effects, where you're going to like polish up your final render. And then again, we hit this roadblock of it going super slow. And again, you just don't even realize how slow it is until you've been working in Unreal constantly. And I think even at that last step, even at compositing, you really need to think like, the real lesson I think that we got to was, it's either all real time or it's not real time. Either your entire workflow is real time and you're working at the speed of thought, or you do not have a real time workflow. If you're doing part of your animation in Maya and importing it into Unreal, and then you're putting that into Houdini and you're bringing that into Unreal, you're not working in real time. And there are advantages to doing that, don't get me wrong. For the right project, that's the right move. But you are not taking advantage of a real-time renderer, and you're not. That's the whole point of using Unreal as our filmmaking tool and as our filmmaking system. So that was a big lesson, is it's either all real time or it's not real time. And that's why it's so important to commit to all of those people that have signed up to Unreal Fundamentals the last couple of days. It's been super awesome. It's been on sale for $200 off for the last this Black Friday weekend, and that's ending today. But I didn't mean to hook that in there, but there we go. All those people that have came in, I wanted to bring through this I wanted to bring you through these big major lessons that I learned on the journey to becoming an Unreal filmmaker. And I want to stress the importance that just at least for the next month, at least for the next 2 weeks, just commit to just only focusing on Unreal. And I swear that those couple weeks of learning and that a little bit of the grind and getting stuck in like, how do I fix this, and going through and troubleshooting it yourself. We have, hit us up on the Discord if you have problems, but all of that, it's all in service of once you figure out how to do it once, you just have to figure it out once, and then you never have to learn it again. And it can be frustrating at first, but it is by far the most rewarding experience. And being able to create something like a 5-minute samurai short film. We created 3 locations for War of Being. I can pull up some stills in a second when we go to questions and answers. We'll do that in just a little bit, in just a few minutes here. So that was the real big lesson, is how specifically is it's all real time or it's not real time. And we want to be real-time filmmakers. That is the unlock. Real-time creation, being in your flow state, creating like an artist. That is what Unreal, that's what needs to be at the forefront of your mind. That is the entire purpose and the reason that we're learning Unreal as this tool set, is that you can get instant renders. You can have an idea, you can put it in Unreal, you can preview it, and literally when you use our render presets, you can use, and just the deferred render, just like using the regular renderer, you can get your results back in about the same amount of time as it takes to play your shot. It is so fast. It is a completely different experience from the slow traditional ways of Unreal. And sometimes you just have to live it and experience it to know it yourself. If someone out there, if you know what I'm talking about, just put like a thumbs up. But like that really is the experience. So anyone that's been down the road, has kind of been using Unreal for a while, it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on that. This has been in the back of my mind for a very long time of why is this the right choice? Why is it worth spending all this time to learn Unreal when you can learn any other software? And my answer is a resounding yes. I feel like I picked the right horse, and I see exactly why. It's not a gamble. I'm not guessing. It was a long process of figuring out these lessons, seeing all the paths that one could take as you're trying to become an independent filmmaker, trying to do your own freelance, trying to do your own boutique studios or make your own games, whatever it is, whatever your thing is, you can do it in real time and you can focus on the creative side of Unreal. So that's the big lesson. That's kind of where I want to wrap up with that. We'll go into questions and answers. But yeah, if that's cool, yeah, Ken, thumbs up. That's awesome. I'm just gonna need a sip of water. If you haven't, I talked about it earlier, but just so you know, because it's ending tonight. What time is it right now? I feel like it's getting pretty late. It's at 10 o'clock. We are at about 1 hour. So if you haven't, kind of why I've spent all this time making the YouTube videos and trying to share my journey and share the experience is because truly, like I hope it came through in kind of sharing that early story. I started off much like you, literally on this website, on YouTube, with a hope and a dream, truly. Like I knew what I wanted to do. I didn't know how to get there, but I knew if I found the right resources and put in enough work myself to build a reel, that I believed truly 100% that I could accomplish that and I could eventually work on Star Wars. And that was the true north for a while. And now it's turning into making movies and into making your own projects and kind of getting that idea out of your head and onto the screen. And so all of those reasons, that's why we created Unreal Fundamentals. So that's on sale for Black Friday right now. I try to create a complete system, a roadmap from a complete beginner to a Unreal filmmaker. And you could be an industry pro, whether you know CGI or visual effects, or you're more on the filmmaking side, on the practical filmmaking side, and you don't know as much. I tried to make Unreal Fundamentals for anyone starting out. And if you're at that point where you're confused, you have those ambitions of kind of going into that next step to make your work better and do that fun creative process of lighting and creating and animating in real time, We made it so that you can know exactly what to do to remove the ambiguity and give you a complete pipeline that works. So you only have to learn Unreal one time. You don't have to search through all these different resources and kind of guess like, oh, there's this tutorial from like 427 and Unreal 5 and Unreal 5.3. We've made it with the latest version of Unreal. We're doing all the latest and greatest practices. All of the lessons we learned on War of Being. And actually, let me switch over to that real quick. I'm just going to switch to some stills real quick. We learned a lot of lessons from this short film and doing it ourselves, doing it as a team of just a few people. I think the total crew size was only 6 of us in total between everyone, between animators and modeling and environments and concept. We were able to do this as a very small team of just super passionate artists. Like the whole mantra of this was find the fun, follow the fun. And if the idea sounded fun, we were going to try to incorporate it in somehow. So this was what we tried to put it together. We tried to take everything, simulations, physics, cloth simulations, animations, birds, all these things that are going to be in a lot of different films. We try to use this as a testing ground when we had a little bit of the opportunity to make something pretty cool, a long form. It ended up being 5 minutes long, this fight scene. But we took everything we learned and kind of turned this into a full system. If you haven't checked it out, it sounds like you want to learn more about Unreal, I'm just going to go up to what it looks like at unrealfundamentals.com right now. So unrealforvfx.com/fundamentals. The link is at the bottom of the screen. I'm just going to put this up before we go into the Q&A, but if you want to create your own action scenes, if you want to make your own films and your own movies, it's on sale for $200 now, but we literally took all the lessons, all the templates, and converted them into resources that you can use. The favorite in particular on the right here is my favorite, is the one-click compositing template. We figured out the entire complicated color space pipeline and turned it into one-click template. It took a very long time to get it to that simple, to such a simple level, but truly, maybe the people that have used it so far could chime in there. I use it on every single project, but it adds all of the things I mentioned today in the video that came out this morning, the Mr. Freeze video, all of those lens aberrations, and even more. There's probably like 3 times the amount of lens effects going on, but they're all in these really easy to use sliders. So you can just click a single button, drag a couple sliders, and get a much better looking image out of Unreal. And we just tried to take every part of the filmmaking process, break it down, create a resource for it, get rid of the confusion, and give you a direct roadmap on how you can use Unreal for filmmaking. And we'll even make our own game if you're a complete beginner. It's super simple. We'll make our own Pac-Man early on, and we'll kind of go through the ropes, go through these major lessons, learn all of the key, the fundamental skills. Truly, it's called Unreal Fundamentals because this is giving us the foundations to create films. It'll take a little bit to get started up. We'll make renders early on. It takes a while to get into the animations and things like that, but it's well worth it. And by the time you get to adding characters with animations and creating your own fight scenes, which is chapter 11, it's the last chapter, is literally you coming together and taking pre-existing animations and making 2 characters fight each other. That's kind of what we build up to by the end of this course. You start from knowing nothing to creating your own fight scene. That's sort of the roadmap we're laying out. So if you're interested, just go to unrealforvfx.com/fundamentals and check it out. It's going to be on sale for 2 more hours just because it's Cyber Monday. I'm not going to keep the sale on. We've been doing it all weekend. So that's the last pitch. That was just because we're running a sale there. Check that out if you want it. Otherwise, we're going to go back to the chat. So I've been babbling for a while. So let's go back to full screen here, and I'll pull the chat up, and we can try to make this a bit more interactive here. And so we'll go into the questions and answers. One question that I just get all the time, so I'd love to answer it right off of the bat, is what computer do I need for Unreal Engine? The answer is really simple. I'm trying to simplify everything. If you have a gaming PC, you can start using Unreal Engine. If not, I would download it and open the starter project and start playing around. I download, what would be a good, simple, free content example to download? I'm trying to think, but build a scene with Quixel assets. Just try it yourself. Use low or medium quality Quixel assets. Don't build a gigantic forest. Build like a concrete, like a sidewalk. Where I'm actually going to add that into Unreal Fundamentals because it's such a good practice. Find a photograph of something that you feel that you could confidently make, something that is basic geometry, squares, spheres, cylinders, the primitives that you know in Unreal, and then you can add textures, add decals, and just see what that looks like. But you can absolutely get started on a gaming PC. Most MacBooks run Unreal just fine, and most of the one issue with Macs right now is that not a lot of the old marketplace assets on the Epic Games Marketplace, some of the paid assets that you can get on Unreal's Marketplace, they were not created for Macs, but Epic has gone ahead and converted all of their existing free downloads, which is all the best stuff on the Marketplace, to be honest, is the stuff that Epic Games has made. They've converted that for Macs. So any of those demo projects that you see in Epic Games examples, or like the Matrix demo, all those different demos, the Meerkat demo, the Slay animation example. I can put some links later on too, but that is the big idea there. So, and that's what you should check out and try first. So, okay, so I'm gonna try to answer some questions from the chat. I have not been looking at the chat nearly as much, so I'm gonna try to go through quick. If you have new questions, definitely jump in. And if anyone knows, I was thinking about this. I don't want this to go on too late. We're at an hour 15. If you guys want to hang out and chat, I'm totally happy to answer questions. I am not a live streamer. I don't watch Twitch. I don't watch any of these things. But if anyone here knows how to use, like we could do a voice chat or something, I don't know how to do that inside of a live stream. So I guess we could use Discord. If anyone from Unreal Fundamentals wants to chat, let's maybe do that. That could be kind of fun. If anyone in the Discord, just go into... what can we do here? We could go, I'm gonna share my screen actually really quick, not to get too meta, but yeah, we could go into the Unreal Fundamentals chat. Sorry, where the heck is that? Am I going crazy? I guess I'll just go into the lounge. We'll see there. If anyone wants to ask a question, and we'll just hop on a one question or two question call, just jump into the lounge, and then I'll jump in. I'll check back on that. That might be kind of cool. But yeah, let's go back to our regular view, and let's answer some questions. So, are you going to show your own UE5 renders in this live stream? If you want to see anything in particular, if you want me to break down any particular project file, let me know. I won't go into too much depth in particular because, well, we'll see. If you have specific questions, I'm happy to give specific answers. So, After Effects sucks. It's the complete opposite of Unreal 5. Yeah, the compositing template, it works for After Effects and for Nuke right now. I use, sorry, I hit the mic. I use Nuke X. Not a lot of people use Nuke because it's not as popular. Alex Hanneman has some really good tutorials. If you want to learn Nuke from the ground up, go to compositingacademy.com. He has some awesome courses over there as well, but he also has some really great free YouTube training. So I would go to his YouTube channel and check that out genuinely. He's a friend, but he makes good stuff. So, you know, support your friends. Okay, so next month, you're getting the Mars Vive and Xsymmetry. That's really cool to kind of read through that comment. Someone's just saying that they're getting the Mars Vive, which is a motion tracker. I haven't done any videos on it, but the original reason I actually got into Unreal was to do at-home motion capture with a camera. So I'll definitely be getting back into that. I have the hardware. I've done it for 2 projects, but I just haven't been recording the behind the scenes during it. So that's another thing that would be super fun. That's a thing we didn't even talk about, but to add onto the real-time creativity aspect of Unreal, being able to go in with a viewfinder and using a real monitor, so you can just get like a Ninja Atmos monitor. And I have this little device that actually you can just plug HDMI into a wireless monitor. So I can walk around and get the feed from my computer sent via HDMI to my monitor. So hopefully that makes sense. But it's just, a monitor is just a handheld thing to preview your render. So you just get a viewfinder of Unreal and you can look around like through the virtual world, but it tracks perfectly your motion to your motion. It's a really cool thing. So animating an iClone is pretty fast. If you have any good iClone tutorials, I would love to see that in the chat. That's one thing that I'm experimenting with more and more now. We're getting deeper into characters. That's the next focus for Unreal Fundamentals. Motion capture is awesome. I'm also trying to look at making a couple more videos for Move AI. If you're not familiar, Move AI has a new option to make to do motion capture using just a single iPhone. It's not perfect, but it seems like enough to get started, and I have big plans to add that into Unreal Fundamentals as well, because I think it's a very practical thing. I'm just trying to think, if you don't have expensive hardware, like it's really expensive to do the handheld camera thing. Mars is several $1,000s. It's great for what it is, but it is expensive. So that's another great option. Move AI, and you just retarget your animations into your character. Just look up retargeting tutorials. That would be the thread to pull there. To follow the course, do we get assets and animations, Moy? To follow the course, do you get animations? Yes, you do. We have 2 project files, so we have a bunch that are the first half of the course is focusing on using the Windwalker Echo character. She has a really great control rig, so you can animate her just like you would in Maya or Blender, which is not the same. You have to build that control rig, and that's still a pretty difficult step inside of Unreal, is building control rigs. There's some really great stuff in the works that I can't talk about because it's too early, but I'm really working hard to figure out how to give everyone control rigs using the rigs that they're used to, which are Mixamo and AccuRig. So be patient there. Again, if I don't know, people are kind of coming in and out, but unrealforvfx.com is on sale today. The sale is ending. So if you want to check that out, just go to unrealforvfx.com/fundamentals and check out the page, see if it's right for you. You can see all of the course itself. But if you've been wanting to kind of make your own films and take that next step and not be beholden to, really slow renders or spending a lot of money to create your ideas, if you want to iterate fast and make your own films using just the computer you already have, definitely check out the course and see if it's right for you. We have a 30-day money-back guarantee as well as part of that. If for some reason your computer craps out on you or it's just not right for you for any reason, we'll definitely, there's literally no problem within the first 30 days. Ultimately, we want people in this program that want to use this and want to learn Unreal. And I'm hoping little chats like this can kind of show like why we're learning it. I think it's just as important as knowing the tactics. It's knowing why we're even doing it. So seeing this from Ray Banda, Nuke is too expensive for hobbyists and newcoming freelancers. So to this, I would actually disagree, not to be a contrarian, but Ray Banda. So in my opinion, so what I use and what I've used for years is a Nuke X non-commercial. Nuke is completely free if you're not using it for a commercial license. And you can use Nuke, I should say this first. Nuke X non-commercial, the limitation with Nuke X non-commercial is you can only render an HD image. If you ask me, that's not really a limitation. You can render 4K in Unreal and then render out your maximum out like through the comp, through Nuke, or through After Effects, for example. You kind of down res your render to deliver it and to render that final image out at HD resolution, 1920 by 1080p. But Nuke also has Nuke Indie. I think it's $500 or $600 a year. That's what I personally use, and that gets you covered for freelance projects. It does get really expensive beyond that. I won't lie. So I'm also looking for other options. I'll be looking into Resolve as well. That's why we have the After Effects templates just in case it becomes too expensive for people. But there you go. Paul Eakin, do you plan on compositing live actors in Unreal? I've gotten this request so many times that I was thinking no, and I was going to be very stern about that because the course at the moment is really focused on using digital characters and creating animated films inside of Unreal. That is the core focus of this course, and that was a very hard skill set to learn, and I think that's a very valuable skill set that, like, I personally, that's what I was wondering the whole time, because I secretly wanted to make this Mr. Freeze short from the very beginning, but I didn't know how characters worked. That's the fun story there. But yeah, so the real answer, will we add compositing live actors into Unreal? And the question here for anyone else out there is, green screen plates of actors. Can you take a green screen plate of an actor and put it into your Unreal scene? We will cover that. I've just gotten so many requests for it that I'm happy to add that in. So that's not going to be a high priority at all, to be honest, but we will get there. We'll get there by beginning of next year for sure. So that would be cool. I have not talked this long straight in a very long time, so I need to get that water. All right. Can a beginner take this course? Move O'Meal? Yes, totally can. It's actually aimed at complete beginners, so good question. But yeah, it's designed for people new to Unreal. If you have used Unreal in the past, I think you'll get a much deeper understanding, and we really hone in on like the workflow in the system behind Unreal, so that you never get stuck troubleshooting ever again. That was the goal in my head from day one when writing the course. So that's the goal. You'll get a much deeper understanding if you know Unreal. I think people that already know a little bit of Unreal have actually had the most success with the course. So people that are pretty familiar, but they just are struggling on a couple things, that's been the biggest thing. So Michael Mayu, appreciate that. Josh, I can't access it. Henry Q, send me an email at learn@unrealforvfx.com. I'll make a note, Henry Q, to follow up with you there, but that would be the best way to make sure that we'll fix any problems that you have tonight. That would be cool. I'm on a Mac M2, not the best way to learn Unreal, but are your assets compatible? Our assets are. So we're using all Quixel assets and Epic Games assets. So as far as I know, it should be completely compatible with Mac, just using our project files. And then you can also access all of Unreal, all of Epic Games free content, which is some of the best free content out there. The Slay animation project, the Meerkat animation project are two really great examples. If you haven't downloaded those and open them up yourself, put that, like, seriously, I'm not kidding, just write it down and do it tomorrow, or download it over the night and compile shaders while you're sleeping. That would be a great idea. So what's the biggest hurdle you encounter for world creation in Unreal? Landscape, lighting, effects, audio. That's a good question, Alex Leva. What's the biggest hurdle right now? Honestly, for me, because I'm more interested in the filmmaking aspect, the hardest part is definitely character animation. There's a lot you can do with Mixamo.com and mixing a lot of animations together. We go in depth on how to do that, like really in depth on how to create fight choreography with it, not just dabble with it, but like create interesting scenes with it. That's the focus of chapter 11. So, but that to me still is, it feels like a never-ending learning curve, animation. I think working on Spider-Verse really opened up my eyes to what's possible. I have been living in the compositing and lighting and the second half of the equation of it's already animated, the layout's already done. Now we're lighting it and compositing it. So I'm learning more and more on that side. So animation is still the trickiest for me because it's not my background, but it's also the most exciting and rewarding too, though. Yeah, we're gonna continue. Like, I'm literally not gonna stop working on this until everyone is able to add animations and control rigs for any character. So that's where I'm like, if we can build to that, I'm gonna feel pretty good that we can kind of open up animation in Unreal to a lot of people. You can use switch light for real people inside if you don't want to use green screen, from Shadow Games. Yeah, there's also some shaders in Unreal to do green screen keying, all inside of your material. So I think we'll get that lesson up pretty quick. But there are some great tutorials out there already on how to do the green screen actors thing. So just watch through them. It's a little finicky. The confusing thing is the video player, that feature in Unreal has continuously been updated every version. It's new, and they're kind of continuing to tweak with it and making brand new systems. So that's why it's a little confusing. But whatever the latest version of Unreal you have, just type in Unreal like 5.2 or 5.3, and then video playback, and then keying material. Boom, solved. But we'll get to it eventually. So just to be clear, these are more small scenes for cinematics, and movies are short films. Yeah. So yeah, that's true too. I think a big part of using Unreal as a beginner, so anyone out there that is interested in using Unreal for filmmaking, couple things. I'm gonna make a video about this as well, but I'll just give you these ideas hot off of the dome is there's a couple things you want to do when you're making a film. You don't want to just make any film. You want to make a film that works within the constraints of Unreal. What do I mean by that? I'm going to use the War of Being project as an example of some things we noticed. And actually, let's do this. I'm going to pull up that Blur video. I knew we were going to get to it. So I hope you guys are down. I mean, yeah, I hope it's not too much of a React thing, but no, but like there's a really good clip that I'm just going to pull up and we'll watch it together. Interestingly enough, Blur Studios, which I was talking about earlier in this live stream, Blur Studios did some really cool stuff early on where, there's a couple rules that I noticed through this clip. So let me go to the screen and we'll play this full screen. We'll blast this. I don't know if we'll get audio. We'll see how this works. Let me know if this is too loud, and I will quiet it. I might make it a little quieter. So we're gonna just watch this. This is like from the vault of Blur Studios, which is like one of the original full cinema, like video game cinematic OGs. Like they are the ones, Tim Miller's company, that has been making these incredible action scenes for video game properties. And they've been doing amazing storytelling and action scenes. And one thing you'll notice, a couple big rules, there's very little facial animation in any of the work that they do. So The Bear is an exception. Everyone just makes expressions, but they don't talk. And I think that's a good idea when you're first starting out, genuinely. I think it's, you can do all the lip syncing, you can get things that are very complicated, but either don't have your characters talk at first, or a better option, and why a lot of people make Star Wars fan films for their first Unreal project, is you should use a helmet, so you don't have to animate someone's mouth and the movement of them moving their lips, because that really is the hardest thing. If we move back, I'm just gonna go back to some of the images I had at the beginning here. You'll see, I mean, it might be obvious now, but we gave them full body helmets because we wanted to give ourselves a break and we didn't want to animate the faces. We wanted to kind of control one thing at a time and not be too ambitious. So I would recommend for the first project you ever make, definitely make sure your characters have helmets. And that seems like a small thing, but I swear to God, you can do the voiceover yourself. You could hire Fiverr actors. You could get AI voices. You could get your friends to do the voice acting, whatever the option is to tell your story and do that. You can get actors to give a performance for your characters, but just don't animate the faces at first. That was a big lesson we learned early on that I would definitely recommend learning from some of the greats. And yeah, just some incredible camera work. And if you look at this, there is no reason you could not make this film inside of Unreal today. Like this sequence probably took so long to render. Blur had crazy render farms because this was made almost 10 years ago, this particular short film. But they're doing all the same things. They're using an anamorphic lens. They're getting dynamic handheld camera movement. They're doing simple face animations. And they're doing a lot of nice lens effects. Like if we go back and we pause, look at this lens dirt on the side. They're doing lens flares and lens dirt. They're doing all the classic stuff that we just talked about today in the new course, in the new YouTube video. So yeah, definitely go back and look at some of Blur's early work, Blur Studio. I'll actually put this in the live stream chat because it is. I go back and revisit some of their clips every I think saying every week is honest. I think I probably go back and watch something from Blur Studios every single week. I think they were doing it right. They figured out a lot of these lessons before anybody else did. And so instead of repeating their mistakes, just learn from what they're doing correctly. And their older work, they were embracing the limitations. Their Batman cinematics, Batman doesn't talk. Batman doesn't move his mouth. The bad guys all have masks. I could go back and show, but trust me, like literally they're doing that same playbook on every short. And if you're doing this, you should absolutely do the same thing. It'll make it easier for your first film. All right, so let's go back. All right, so Henry Q, cool. You're in as well. I saw that. That's awesome. Useful for somebody who has been using UE5 for a year to hone their skills. Blah Vendetta. Yes, I would say if you're interested in, you're considering the course, I think it's actually more useful to the people that have been dabbling in Unreal, but haven't like fully felt confident in their skills. The idea is by the end of this that you have a deep understanding and you just know how to go into the creation process. You're no longer thinking of the technical part of how do these systems plug into each other. We're going to cover all of that, and we're going to like just do it through examples and through creating environments, not like isolated exercise. We do it through creating environments and creating films. So I think you get some use out of that. Ray Banda, wait for Project Avalanche in Unreal 5. It's in the works already. I have not heard of a Project Avalanche, but yeah, if you got more info, that's cool. Can Unreal Engine be used solely for motion graphics like you would do in Cinema 4D? That's a great question, and actually I've considered that's another really good idea that I've been sitting on. So the answer is, it is not intuitive to make motion graphics inside of Unreal. If you know how to use Unreal and you know how to make blueprints, you can do all the same things that you were doing in Cinema 4D, but the unfortunate truth is that you're gonna have to build custom blueprints to make those things, to make those tools for yourself. I'd be interested to see, I am assuming soon enough, people are gonna be coming along and creating tools for that. Grayscale Gorilla just released an Unreal plugin this last weekend. So maybe that's something to look into. I haven't actually visited their website for that, but I've gotten the ads, and Grayscale Gorilla is great. I learned Cinema 4D from them way back in the day. And their stuff's great. Their products are really top notch. They don't skimp out on quality there. So I would check Grayscale Gorilla, see if they have some plugins that would allow you to do some motion graphics. There's also, if you want to just check out something tonight, there is this broadcast example. So you can I think you can download this. I don't think you can download Rocket League. Rocket League is awesome. So maybe this isn't the exact thing, but they have a project file called the broadcast sample. If you search that in the Epic Game Store, you'll find a project just like this with cars and flashy motion graphics and smooth spinning animations, and you can see how it all works together. So I would just Google that, Epic Games Marketplace animation broadcast sample, not example. Yeah, 10 motion graphics templates. So check this out. Here we go. Yeah, this is the thing. And this is what's awesome. I do love how much Epic supports Unreal. It is really hard to know where all of these resources are. Like, I've been kind of in the world for a while, but if you're brand new, obviously you would probably never know this exists, but this is for free. You can download it tonight and literally open it up this afternoon. Or this tonight or tomorrow morning after the shaders compile. But yeah, that's literally for free. You can download it and you can use it on commercial projects. It sounds kind of crazy, but it's totally true. So yeah, check that out. And then we'll go back to the question. So I think we're at an hour 30. So just as one last catch-all for anyone who's been kind of roaming around here, just so you know, there is 90 minutes left to grab Unreal Fundamentals for $200 off, 40%, whatever you want to say. And we're gonna, like, at the end of 90 minutes from now, it's gonna go back to the regular sales price that we were doing before Black Friday and all that. So if you want to grab it, now's the time to do it. There's a full 30-day money-back guarantee. You can read through the whole page. I'd recommend going through it and kind of seeing if it's right for you, and kind of seeing the lessons and kind of what we cover, and see if you want to make films on Unreal. Then, quite frankly, in my opinion, because I tried to make a program that I would have wanted when I was first starting out, and I was thinking through that process the entire time. So and I was trying to be very thoughtful the entire time while writing every single lesson. So I hope that comes through. I think if you look at some of the testimonials and things like that, especially some of the more recent ones that have come through, more people have been joining in the last couple of days, which has been super cool and super supportive. So it's great to see. Check it out, see if it's right for you. Now is the time to get it. And if it's not right, just send us an email and we'll refund you. And it's totally no sweat. So yeah, check that out. Do you think this course will be good for ArchViz? I think if you want to get more creative with your camera work, and I think if you want to start using blueprints in a more creative way, I think if all you're doing is just importing models and taking still images, then if that's like what you need to do, then this isn't the right program for you. But if you want to make films, like if you wanted to take ArchViz and create like a sequence, like a 5-minute sequence, or like going through a property even 1 minute and building like a sizzle reel, this would be a great resource. We have a cameras masterclass where we go in deep. We're doing a bunch of a new masterclasses too, of a lot of the camera animation. And I think you'll get a much deeper understanding of Unreal. So check it out. And truthfully, like especially Vinicius, if it's something you're like kind of on the fence on, just so you are secure in feeling that you're not going to make a mistake. I know when it's a lot of money, I'm the same way when something is like over $100. I'm really conscientious of like, is this going to be a waste of money? And it's just hard to get over. And I'm always questioning everything in the same exact way. So I totally get that. But that's why we have the 30-day money back guarantee. So check it out. Truly, if it's not right for you and you're like, well, I kind of know this already, I'd be surprised. But go for it. Literally, that's what it's there for. So yeah, literally, it's all good. So do you have any courses to learn filmmaking for free? Alejandro, check out my YouTube channel. There's some really great videos there. I really try to hold nothing back on the YouTube channel. I think some of my best tutorials are on YouTube. But in general, it's just because I'm able to go really deep for a long time, where the course is a little bit, the lessons are shorter. So there's each lesson, you're just learning one thing, as opposed to like with the YouTube videos, hopefully you're learning like 15 things if you're kind of new to the space. We'll see, but check out there. And then we also have a free Unreal crash course. So check that out, unrealforvfx.com/crash course. It's a mini course to get you introduced and kind of up and running with how you need to think about Unreal as a filmmaking tool. I think you'd like that. So Node03, thanks for joining. That's awesome. We'll see you inside, and definitely like hit us up in the Discord. We're trying to get more active in there, and we'll start doing Work in Progress Wednesday. So anyone on this call that's in Unreal Fundamentals right now already, that was before this, if you can, I'm going to start posting my work in progress renders every Wednesday. I think it'd be really cool as a community thing to not hide our work in progresses, but show like, yo, we're making stuff, we're moving. It might not be perfect, but this is what I got. And then from there, you can kind of tag your shot. Every Wednesday, you can tag and say, hey, I want feedback on this shot. And then anyone from the group, whether it's me or someone else, there's some really cool people kind of coming in and out. Some people that have really extensive backgrounds in visual effects. So the community coming through there has been pretty cool. You can get feedback from filmmakers from the group and get, if you want harsh critiques, sometimes that's the best. I think some of the best critiques that I can remember are those daily sessions. Dailies are just your daily review where you bring in your work. If you haven't worked in a visual effects studio, it's basically, especially when you're starting out and you're kind of nervous and insecure about your work because you're just starting out and you don't know. It's kind of like you submit your work to get reviewed every single day. And when you're starting out, it's kind of like getting punched in the mouth over and over. You're like, oh God, like, oh, I messed that up. And like, oh, I'm like, this is wrong. And it's kind of brutal at first. But I tell you what, going through like a couple weeks of just getting your face beat in through feedback and creative notes, like, oh, this is stuff I should have known. You become so much better as an artist, so much faster. And so if we can help each other in the group, whether that's in the comments or whatever, it's kind of weird to give feedback unsolicited. So I want people to be able to say like, hey, I want feedback on this specifically because I want to improve, to kind of open the floodgates. Because sometimes those harsh critiques are kind of that, like, those are the ones that make you better. I've at least found that for myself. It might not be true for everybody, but so yeah, hopefully if you're in the group, submit your stuff. I'm gonna start submitting my own work wherever it's at every Wednesday. So let's do that. I think that'll be pretty cool, and kind of, I want to keep the creation and the creativity top of mind. And I think if we do that, no one's gonna be worried about getting stuck, and no one's gonna be concerned of like, it's all part of the process. And I think if you're open to growing, and if you're open to critique, you're open to growing. So I think that's a really cool. It's what I would have wanted when I was first learning. So hopefully we can create that and support each other as a group. That would be my dream as an Unreal filmmaking group. So how can I use VR for my projects in Unreal? Use Houdini. Okay. So just answering questions really quick. Miguel, shoot me an email if you're still having issues. I can't check anything right now while I'm on the stream, but because I don't want to give any information away. But shoot us an email, and like we'll honor the discount or anything if something's not working, or even if it's just your card's getting declined or something like that. A lot of times it is weirdly you might not think it, or sometimes you just have to confirm with your bank. Like they'll just shoot you a text and you just type in yes, that sort of thing. But yeah, that's the just shoot us up through our support email and we'll get you covered there. How long will the class be available? It will be available for a lifetime. It's lifetime asterisk. Let's say 5 years for sure. Like I will host the videos no matter what for 5 years. And if for any reason we would take them offline, if anyone asks, we can give you offline versions. But at the moment, you need internet. It's streamed videos. It just keeps it more secure, and it just makes it harder to access for people that pirate, to be honest. So that's just what it is. That's the game. So we're not going to offer offline downloaded videos for that reason, because we can't. There's no protection once you have that. So. It's accessed through our website. So once you are in and you have your account created, you'll go to learn.unrealforvfx.com. And actually, just really quick for anyone who's just curious, let's just pull it up so you know exactly what it looks like when you're in Unreal for VFX. So this is our website. This is our portal. This is what you're going to see when you get access to the website. So we have Unreal for VFX fundamentals here, and you can start off with our first lessons. And then, yeah, you'll get your download links and you can get access to the Discord right away. We'll kind of walk through all the big stuff that we'll learn. And then, yeah, we'll go through that. Chapter 1 is really short and really brief, more focused on mindset. We'll kind of go between tactics and mindset. And then, yeah, we go through, we end up learning everything from materials to blueprints. We have our Blueprints for Beginners PDF, which is really cool. Which is like an entire slide deck to teach you blueprints. Can I go full screen here? This is Blueprints for Beginners. This is like an entire mini course put into a PDF. This is 70 pages, all specifically designed to teach you exactly how blueprints are supposed to work. So yeah, this is something I'm super excited about. That will help a lot of beginners get through some of the big roadblocks with blueprints. We get into characters and character animation inside a sequencer. A really cool thing, if you haven't seen, we also have this search bar. So literally, we went ahead and I paid for a a developer so we could make our own AI search engine. I'm not calling it an AI search engine because it's super, it's buzzwordy, but it is a search engine. It happens to use ChatGPT to read through all the captions of the video. But let's say, for example, I'm like, hey, I want to learn about Path Tracer. You have to enable a bunch of settings for Path Tracer. But so like, what do I need to enable? So I'll type in Path Tracer enable. And then I can look through here and just read through the captions. And then I can see like, okay, so I need to search to enable Path Tracer, enable support hardware. So this seems to be the right selection. This seems to be how we enable Path Tracer. So we can click on this, and now it's just going to jump to that point in the video. And I can see like right away, okay, cool, this is the exact settings I need to enable Path Tracer. So this is what I mean when I say it's designed as a resource. The entire course was designed with this thought process in mind. So if I was like, take recorder, or like record physics is another one. Where like there's one answer to this question. You might not want to Google it, but all the right answers for all of these workflows are in this course, and now you can access it and just jump directly to those time codes. So so this can be used for physics simulations, but it can be used for motion capture and recording. So record physics looks like that's the one. You can see the thumbnail, and it looks correct. So this is showing us that take recorder is how we can record physics. So once you've kind of gone through the course, it'll be a little bit easier to search and understand what the search engine is looking for, and kind of it's more to remind you of what the workflows are, because sometimes you'll do one workflow for a bunch of projects in a row, for 3 or 4 projects in a row, and then you'll switch to path tracing for 2 or 3 projects, and then you'll switch back. And at the end of the day, there's one right answer for a lot of these things, so you shouldn't have to remember it. You can just, that's why the lifetime access, I think, is actually a useful thing, and why we're going to continue supporting it, is so we can keep this search engine alive, and we can continue adding to it, so you can basically jump directly to your time codes. I'm sorry, I think I was playing my own audio there, so hopefully that wasn't too loud. But yeah, and then we also have our create our own action scenes. So here we learn about this is our new chapter, but here we create our own lightsaber battle. This is our final chapter. We're going to add another sequence that we're going to create on. Excuse me, I need a drink of water. For chapter 11, we're going to add another lesson to take Paragon creatures and make them fight each other inside of Unreal. That's going to be the last big update to the course, like a really big update that's going to unlock a lot of filmmaking potential for anyone out there looking to animate characters and things like that. So that's what is coming up next down the pipe. And then we have all of our bonuses. So we have our lightning fast render presets. So you'll get all of the best render presets for path tracing, the fastest render presets with the highest quality. We have our glossary. So here we can, we literally went through all of the confusing parts of Unreal and rewrote it as a really simple and easy to understand explanation. So like skeletal mesh, it's like, okay, this is like, I can see exactly what it is, like a car and a character and also this hair. They're all different forms of skeletal meshes. And it's just one place for all that stuff. Cheat sheets, the one-click compositing template as well. We have Nuke and After Effects. We'll add Resolve in just a couple weeks. But yeah, so that's kind of what it looks like on the inside. I'll jump back to our screen, but I just so anyone is kind of curious what's inside. That's what's inside. We have nothing to hide and nothing to hold back. Like if anything, I would love to share it. And just so you know, like I've had a couple people ask like, why don't you just put it out for free on YouTube? Which I think is a fair question. But the real reason why, and why it's amazing for any of you to support this program, to me, it means the world to me, is literally the entire reason is like, I have no ambitions to buy any sort of luxury anything. All I care about in life is how can I make movies, and all of the profits that we make from this company literally are just going to be funneled back into creating movies and hiring better artists to work on those movies. And that will come from some of the standouts from Unreal Fundamentals, selfishly. We're just going to try to create teams, small projects, and make some really kick-ass projects for a little bit of money. And that's sort of the roadmap for kind of into the next year is kind of turning that and then making movies with any of the proceeds, and then creating behind the scenes and teaching you exactly how we did it. So kind of just trying to continue to cycle back into, that's sort of the mission. That's where I'm coming from. That was always the goal from the very beginning. Yeah, that would be awesome. So is the course downloadable offline? So I think I answered that. And then how can I use this for Houdini? That you should actually look up. So the Houdini question, or even VR. So how do I answer this? One thing that's really cool about Unreal is that it really is like a game engine that you can kind of plug in. Like plug-in is a really great term, because you're basically plugging in a new feature into this stable engine, and you can plug in all these different features, and once they're in Unreal, you can basically connect the dots between all these different features, which is really, really cool. Houdini is one of those plugins, and it seems very in-depth. There's some specific Houdini tutorials. I'm not enough of an expert to give you a specific, like any sort of masterclass information on the Houdini side of Unreal, but I know there's some really incredible tools being created. I saw some really nice vines and organic materials being spawned and created in Houdini, and it will update live inside of Unreal. There's some really cool interactions where you'll build complex node trees of what you can do with all of your not even physics interactions, but just simulations, or almost like if you think of, there's a process if you were going to design a city, right? So you'd like draw the roads, and then the cars go there, and then the buildings, and you randomize the buildings. You do that kind of thing inside of Houdini. That's like a pretty semi-common use case of Houdini is something like that. You can take those assets and import those, and there's basically like a live link between Houdini and Unreal. So check out the Houdini plugin. VR is the same. It's just a plugin that you go in, and we'll eventually, the long term, something that'd be very cool that I'm interested in making is VR filmmaking. Me and my buddy Alex, if he's still in here, we've been talking about that for like about a year probably. Is like, how can we take Unreal Engine filmmaking to the Quest, where you can hold the camera with your controllers? All of the resources are there, but to make it right and to make it really stable and so it never bugs out, that's the hard part. So that's why I don't really want to teach a workflow if it's really buggy, if that makes sense. So anyway, okay, so if you have any last questions, put them in the stream right now. Otherwise, I think we're gonna wrap this up. We're at 2 hours, so thanks for sticking around. But yeah, seriously, if you have any questions, leave them in the chat or even email us at learn@unrealforvfx.com. And we'll get back to you. Our support or myself will get back to you. And yeah, broadly speaking, thanks for the support on the Mr. Freeze video. If you like what we're doing with the YouTube tutorials or with Unreal Fundamentals, if you know someone that might be interested, you know other filmmakers, other VFX artists, people in similar spaces, and if it seems like they'd be interested, definitely send them over a video or shoot them a link to the course if that's something that they're truly interested in. Probably the YouTube stuff, just to see if it's something they're interested in. That would be super cool. It means a lot. That's what I've just found over and over. There's no trick to growing on YouTube. It's literally by sharing the stuff that you enjoy. So I definitely try to pass on those blur videos and the things that I like, because ultimately that's the only way that we kind of can spread information, especially as like a small community. Unreal is a surprisingly small community. So compunction time, thank you so much. Alejandro Arroyo, what's your email for VR projects? I'm kind of saying no to almost every side project at the moment, so no offense there, but feel free to email it over. Josh at Unreal for VFX is my personal email through Unreal for VFX. So just send something there and I'll see it. So send it through there. And then off the top, what probably wouldn't work on a Mac properly? So the big things that won't work on Mac, I believe path tracing might have some issues, especially with M2 chips. Don't quote me on that. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to pull it up. So MacBook Unreal limitations. So Unreal actually made this thing, this entire page. If I go here, so hair and groom is not supported. Ray tracing is not supported. Lumen does work, but it is using a different method, but it does totally work. And then you can't use temporal super resolution. We talk about this. This is really in the weeds when we're getting into that minute of render settings, but we explain how to switch your render settings. So if you go through the course, I mean, that would be solved. You'd have no issues there. The things that you will maybe have some issues with is the Epic Games Marketplace. A lot of the old assets that were created before Unreal 5, they might not work with your project. So they could still work if they're like 3D assets, like geometry and textures and materials, those will all work. But certain blueprints and rendering features, they might not work when going to Mac. But a lot of people are switching over to Mac. Honestly, now is the right time to switch over. If it was a year ago, it probably was not a good idea. Maybe 2 years ago it was a really bad idea, but they're now fully supporting it. And if you have the most recent hardware with Macs, you're gonna have a good time. The new M2 and M3 chips are they're fast as heck. So Alejandro, oh cool, yeah. And Alejandro, if you have a studio, hit me up directly. We have studio licenses. We do a different program for that, but hit me up directly, and we'll get you in touch with the right people, and we'll just get you signed up if you want this for more people at a game studio. We totally have that set up and are super happy to do that. And if you happen to work for VFX studios that are growing an Unreal division or need some training like this, we do group training, and that's why we're adding more library, like more videos into our library as well, is because we want to continue growing and creating a more useful package basically. Like you'll get the complete filmmaking playbook by the time we're finished. When we stop giving updates, it'll be for good reason. It's because we have everything fine-tuned, and we really feel like we're getting enough feedback from students. It's not like we feel that it's good, that we're actually getting the correct feedback from people that have completed the course, and seeing them be successful. So thanks for hanging out for the night. For all of you that have stuck through, I think it's 48 of you right now. Legendary 99, thanks so much. Noto3, what is the timeline for the Paragon update? I would give it about a month by the time the videos are completely edited and published. We're going to be recording those very, very soon. And then the editing takes about 2 weeks because there's a lot of footage naturally. We edit all of our videos down. We're not giving you like really long screen recordings. They're like polished and produced videos, so that you're only getting the most useful information. Like there's literally zero fat on these videos. So like wasted time is what I mean by that. So yeah, in about a month, you should expect that Paragon update. And there's definitely enough in there to get started and to make your own projects. And if you ever need ideas for projects, throw that in the Discord. And I have 50 million ideas that I could throw out of like, oh, like this would be a great first time project, or like, oh, you've done this and this. Oh, you should try like character animation or AccuRig, or maybe motion capture, or AI video motion capture, and I can kind of lead you to some cool resources there as well. So that's all there. So yeah, thanks again. Thanks for sticking around. We'll call it right here, but thanks for watching. And if you haven't, if you're still on the fence, check out unrealforvfx.com/fundamentals. Again, you have 30 days to decide if it's right for you. If you're even considering it, you can get started for just $99 today, and you'll get full access. It turns into 3 payments over 3 months. And again, like we are just I'm so confident that this is the best training out there on the market, that like we will give 30-day money back guarantee to anyone. If truly you didn't get something out of it, like then we don't want to take anything from you if you're not getting anything from us. So we want to support you, and I think I'm super pumped seeing the feedback. I was nervous at first because Unreal is pretty tricky, but I think it's working for a lot of people. So now I hate being the sales guy, but at the same time, I'm actually pretty proud of where it's gotten to, because we've been updating it constantly over the last 3-4 months. Like every month we have a major update. So, and real quick, 99FF, metahumans are not covered in this course. If you are a brand new beginner to Unreal, you should not be learning metahumans. I will stand by that decision. We might add it in much later, or it might be in our advanced course. We will be doing additional courses later on too, but like we might do one specifically for that or something. I don't know. But metahumans are way too complicated for complete beginners, and it will just make you more confused instead of like empowering you to make your own films. It will just keep you like frustrated, and you're like, oh, this isn't working, and the face isn't working, and the body's different, and there's so many problems and things that can go wrong. If you don't have a really strong foundation in Unreal, you're probably gonna have a bad time, and you're not gonna enjoy learning Unreal if you learn through metahumans. So try that. That's kind of our mentality there. There's a lot of great tutorials out there. I think you'll get the important foundations of how characters work, of how environments work, and how materials and blueprints work together, and how that all feeds into sequencer and movie render queue to make your own movies. So if you want to make your own films, you have 30 days to decide, but we have 1 hour left. Check it out. If someone you know is interested, now is the time to get it at the lowest price it will ever be. I can confidently say, truly, you can only do this. Unreal Fundamentals will never be this, this is the lowest price it will ever be. So if you're on the fence, that's all I'm saying, is that now is going to be the best time, and like decide if it's right for you later on, if that's kind of the route to go, and totally respect that decision either way. But just to be completely transparent, that is what it is, because we're adding to this course every month. So we're not going to like suddenly put it on sale all the time. Like it's becoming more and more valuable every single month. We're adding new resources, new videos, new templates, all that stuff. So check it out and send it to a friend if it sounds like something that they're interested in. They got one hour left to decide if it's right for them. But yeah, I'll leave you to it. Thanks again, and yeah, we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for sticking around, guys, and yeah, we'll talk to you again soon.